We're sisters, best friends, and authors on a mission to help you stoke your creative fire and live the life of your dreams. We believe that purpose fuels passion and that creativity is your secret weapon for mass construction. There's never been a better time to bless the world with your dream realized. You're listening to The Kate and Abby Show. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of The Kate and Abby Show. Are you looking for the perfect beta readers? A few people who can give you valuable, honest feedback on your work. People who understand your book's mission and audience. People who want to see you succeed. If so, keep listening because in this podcast, Kate and I will be sharing the best methods for finding highly qualified beta readers for your story, plus the 9 essential questions to ask your beta readers after they've read your book to prompt the most helpful feedback. Before we get started, we have to thank our sponsors who are you. That's right, you guys are the ones who support us and keep this show going. We so appreciate it. So if you get value out of this podcast, go to patreon.com/The Kate and Abby Show and help us keep this show alive and free of interruptions. So, beta readers. There's a lot to talk about in this topic.
Yeah,
I think we should.
This is such a heavily requested episode.
Yeah, it really is. I think we should start by talking about where to find beta readers. Yeah. So there are a lot of places that you can find beta readers. I know that I've found my beta readers mostly in my house. And
sometimes you don't have to look very far.
Yeah, sometimes you don't have to look far.
Sometimes they're right there, right in front of your face.
And we're going to get to the qualification process in a few minutes and talk about how your own family can be beta readers because of the qualification process. But don't throw out this idea immediately of like, oh, my family could never be my beta readers, because until you hear the process of qualifying to be a beta reader, that might not be true. So just keep an open mind with regards to that. Maybe your family, maybe your friends, or online writing communities is another great place to find beta readers. And we actually have our own online writing community.
We do, yeah.
Which we started I think almost a year ago now.
Yeah, almost one
which
full
is
year ago.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It's called the Start Your Story Challenge. And you guys have probably heard us talk about it before. It's a Facebook group. And I think there's over 2,000 people in there now, isn't there?
Yeah, something like that.
There's a lot of writers in there. So definitely join the group if you haven't already. We'll leave the link in the description box below. Lots of amazing writers in that group, very supportive. And writing groups like that are a great place to find beta readers because you can put out a post in the group, in the forum, whatever kind of layout it is, telling people that you're looking for beta readers, giving a little bit of information about your book, and just seeing what kind of responses you get. Obviously, you don't have to take everybody who responds. You don't have to make every single person who responds a beta reader if you don't want to. They have to qualify to be a beta reader. So I definitely recommend a community where you already know some people or your friends or your family for finding these people, because I don't necessarily recommend services that are, hire a beta reader that you don't even know.
Yeah.
Because chances are, based on the qualification process that we're going to go into in a minute, the questions that you should ask yourself when you're choosing your beta readers, chances are you won't find a person who's highly qualified with each question in an online service that's just beta readers for hire.
And they're reading huge volumes of books.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Someone who is doing this as a job, who knows how many books they're reading.
Right.
You know what I mean? Not that I'm dissing all beta reader services here.
Right.
Because I'm sure there are some valid ones.
Right.
That will give you some solid advice.
Right.
But if you are asking someone, say, that is in your writing group, that's someone who's not reading 10 books in a week.
It'll be more personalized.
It'll be more personal. They'll also be more sensitive to all the little details that you're going to want feedback on than someone who's just cranking through huge amounts of books.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So let's go into the questions that you should ask yourself when you're choosing beta readers, because this is really the qualification process. And you'll see what I mean about beta reading services not being necessarily an ideal place to find these people. So the first one they would qualify for, which is, will they be honest with me? That's the first question you should ask yourself, the most important question, and the question that might disqualify your family members or your friends if they don't want to give you honest feedback because they're afraid of hurting your feelings. Like, they have to be honest with you. Like, you're one of my beta readers. I'm one of your beta readers, right, technically.
Yes.
As is my mom. My mom is one of my beta readers too. And she is brutally honest with me. And you are always honest with me too. I wouldn't say you're brutal in anything because you're always really nice to me. But you're honest. And yes, I'm always honest with you because we want each other's books to be the best they can be.
Exactly.
You know, so
I try to always give exactly what my gut reaction is to it.
Right. Yeah.
And not
like, you won't just shower me in praise and compliments.
Oh, yeah, no, it's great, it's great.
If something stands out to you as like being odd or sounding weird, you're like, you immediately tell me. Right. And I do the same for you. And that's really the most important thing.
Right. Honesty. I feel like also because we read each other's stuff so much, and I mean, we've written together for so long that I almost am so in tune with what you want for the characters that, like, if I feel like, oh, you know, I feel like that's kind of off for what you would write for him.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And you can't get that from someone that you hire.
Right.
Because if you can get a writing buddy who has some history with you, they know you and the way you write and intend the vibe and stuff that you're intending for a certain character. They'll know that. Whereas someone you hire online isn't going to know that. Right.
Exactly.
They don't know if that's all, like, you'll read something, I'm like, that sounds a little off from what you would normally write.
Right.
Things like that, little nuanced things that really can become the secret sauce to making the book that next level.
Right.
And that can come from someone who knows you a little better.
Yeah, so that's the advantage you have with being actually related to each other and spending a lot of time writing together. It's even better if you're both writers. That's like a bonus.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yes.
But that leads into the next qualifying question, which is, do they understand my mission with this story? Which is going beyond just the writing style and character voice and things like that, but where you actually want this story to go, both physically and when somebody reads it, what do you want them to walk away with? So in a deeper way, the theme, the truth, the deeper meaning behind the story, knowing your mission with that is something that to me is vital, that the beta reader knows your mission. And some people will just click with you and their feedback, like you'll try out beta readers or ARC readers, and somebody might stand out to you as giving you really great feedback that it clicked with you to the point where you saw, you understand, like you get it. You get my mission with this, and that is a person that you should grab onto and keep them, keep their contact information, make friends with them, reach out to them, ask them if they would beta read for you again or ARC read for you again, whatever service you need. But those people are hard to find.
You had some experience with like finding some readers at the ARC level that you're like, hey, you know, you really get the mission of my books. Would you be a beta reader? Like, didn't you have some kind of,
I did.
People like that? Yeah,
I did. And it's such a great way to find beta readers and ARC readers, because if you're looking through all of that feedback, or at least a lot of it, and keeping your eye out, then you'll see those people who really get it. And those are people that you want to hang on to. So I've done that, and I highly recommend that other writers do that as well, because those people who understand your mission, that's a deal breaker for me. You have to understand the mission with this story. If you don't, then I can't really expect feedback that will help me to improve and strengthen my mission, you know?
Right. It's like asking someone for directions when they don't know where you're even trying to go.
Right.
How helpful.
Or they're lost too.
Yeah. I don't know where I'm going either.
Yeah.
How do we go that way?
Like at least there's solidarity. We can be lost together.
Right. Yeah, that's important.
That's an important one for me. The next one is a little bit more technical. Are they or do they understand my target audience? That's another important thing. They don't necessarily have to be your target audience, but they at least have to understand the perspective of your target audience and almost be able to put that mindset on when consuming your books.
Right.
Like I'm kind of that way with yours, honestly, because I love everything you write, but like your specific genre is not something that I would seek out from other authors.
Right.
Usually. I mean, I try to branch out and
you read more contemporary.
Yeah, I'm way more attracted to contemporary.
Stuff like that, yeah.
So it would be like very adventurous for me to pick up a book that's more of the genre that you write. But I like being able to see things from different perspectives and to branch out and try new things. And you've introduced me to more genres through that. Mm-hmm. And I think that I can put myself in the shoes of your reader.
Yeah.
Who likes that genre. Because, I mean, I love everything that you write, but it's important that your beta reader understands the genre.
Yeah.
And the target audience.
Right.
And who is attracted to this kind of story.
Because if you ask someone who you write fantasy and you're like, oh, I'll have my close buddy read this, and they hate fantasy.
Yeah.
So they're like, you know, it doesn't engage me. I'm not pulled in, and it's really a great book, but they just don't like fantasy. Well, you know, you're not going to want to be like, oh, okay, well, you know what? Thank you so much for doing that. I'm not going to publish it now. And I think you really saved me a lot of embarrassment because it's clearly a horrible book. Well, it's like they just didn't like it. Because they don't like that genre, you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like, you know, that friend who doesn't like Star Wars, they hate the whole Star Wars movie. Well, guess what? Star Wars is going to make millions of dollars forever because people love those movies. So if you were to take one person who didn't like it, take as like, this is gospel truth, this is what everyone thinks, this is what the whole world's going to think of my work, that's not good. You don't want to do that. You want someone, like Abby said, who either likes that genre to some extent or can put themselves in the shoes of someone. Okay, this is going to be like, you know, fantasy powers and stuff like that. Okay.
Yeah. You can't look at it from the perspective of the genre you're used to or you're interested in if you're not interested, like if you're not super into that genre. So like when I read your stuff, I don't put myself in the shoes of like, okay, this is, you know, everything I love in contemporaries. Like that's not the hat I wear to read your books. You know, I put on like the paranormal, urban fantasy, metaphysical coolness hat.
Right.
And I can see it better and more clearly from that perspective rather than expecting everything to be the exact kind of book that I am used to or most attracted to or whatever.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, that's definitely an important thing to have in your beta reader is that they are your target audience or at least they understand it really well. And the last question to qualify for your beta readers is, do they want to see me succeed? And this one comes in especially with your family and your friends. And I always say this is like a deal breaker because you might have some friends who really want to be your beta readers who you're not sure if they actually want to see you succeed. And you're not sure if they're actually happy for you when you do succeed. They're like the friends that you hang out with and you're not sure if you had fun with them when you finish hanging out with them. And you're like, I don't really know like if they were that happy for me. That felt kind of weird. And I'm kind of like drained now after hanging out with them. Those people are officially called ambivalent friends. And they're kind of like, you don't really know where you stand with them. And those are not the people that you should be getting feedback from, okay? Right. Basically, long story short, those people should not be your beta readers, okay? So if you question at all if they want to see you succeed or if they're happy for you when you do, don't choose them for your beta reader
Right.
team.
A lot of people...
they can be ARC readers.
Just because someone offers to beta read doesn't mean that you should have them beta read or that you should definitely not feel obligated. Don't ever feel obligated to have someone beta read. because there are so many people who actually just want to read your book without buying it. And I'm like serious. It's a whole thing out there. I've seen so many people. I've seen people on other people's books. I've seen people in my books. I've seen people in your books, friends' books. And it's like they just want to read your series. They're like, hey, you know, can I beta read?
Yeah.
And then you'll never hear from them again.
Which is fine for like the ARC stage of things. Because the more reviews,
even then,
the better.
though, no, I'm not even talking about an exchange for an honest review. I just mean like, can I have it?
Oh, can I just
you know
read
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it reminds me of like a meme I saw about artists, and it was like little figures, and this guy's like painting, and the other little guy's like, "Oh, you'll never be able to make a living off of art. Can I have that for free?" It's like point proven. So you know what I mean? So it's like something to be aware of, especially not so much when you're just starting out, but once you start publishing books or having your stuff online, sometimes you'll get people who they really like your stuff, but they just are like, hey, can I beta read so I can kind of like see it beforehand and not have to like buy it.
Right.
Leave a review. So it's just things to be cautious of, which some of them, if you have some super fans, those are great people to have beta read sometimes. If you have people who are really engaged with your content, they're leaving positive reviews, they're following your YouTube channel or your blog or whatever, you see them around, you know who those people are. Those are great people to be like, hey, do you want to beta read my book? And of course, they have to meet this other criteria. They have to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But a lot of times you will find really honest fans.
Right.
You know, I've had some amazing fans who...
And you can tell, you know, because they give you feedback on other things.
Right. They love some things. They'll be like, oh, you know, I noticed this and this.
Yeah.
Those are great people to be like, hey, I'll send you a free copy of my book if you'd like to beta read it. Yeah. So that's a great way. It works both ways. Sometimes you don't want to do that because you don't want to be you shouldn't be giving away like thousands of copies of your books to just be beta read.
No, beta reading is a totally different thing. Than ARC reading.
Right. This is your close people.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Your close people that you want honest feedback from in the early stages.
Yeah, when you're still making changes to your book. When you're in the ARC stage, you should hopefully be done making changes, unless something comes back and you're like, oh, wow, I really do need to change that. But the beta reading stage is the net that's supposed to catch all the little errors and things like that, and developmental stuff especially. So if they want to see you succeed, and they'll be honest with you, and they understand your mission with this story, and they understand, or they are the target audience of your story, they're the perfect beta reader. Snatch them immediately and ask them to be your beta reader. And a lot of times you'll have a group of people to choose from. You'll have people volunteering, like you were just saying, and wanting to read your stuff. And you do have to qualify them, but I think you'll turn out with a really good group of people. And it's important to also note that you don't want too many. Yeah. Because too much feedback can pull you into too many different directions, I think. So I think the magic number is like 3 to 4, the most. Yeah. And anything beyond that is going to be like just a lot of opinions. Right.
And it's also important to note on your end, you have to sift through advice to find opinion versus actual things that might need to be adjusted. So if someone's like, oh, your story has an ancient prophecy in it, I've never liked those.
Yeah. That's a preference thing.
That's a preference thing. So if someone says to you like, oh, that feels overdone, you know, ancient prophecy, vampire boyfriend, lost treasure, whatever it is. If it's a thing that just is like a peeve to them, that does not necessarily mean you should change it. Because if you start adjusting your story based on everyone's preferences, you will end up with a blank Word document eventually. Yeah. Because some people will be like, oh, well, I love that element. Other people are going to be like, oh, I hate that element. You know what I mean? So you have to look at, if they're like, oh, well, you know, I think this is introduced a little early. I bet it would make the story feel more climactic if you introduce that element through this character's point of view. It's stuff like that you want to look at. Things like that, or mistakes, or, stuff that makes your story tighter and better. Not so much like, oh, that character's annoying, or this element's annoying. That's not going to be the type of be all end all feedback that you're going to want to make big decisions off of.
Right. Yeah. And I think one of the best ways to get feedback is to not wait for it, but to ask for it, and to prompt your reader with questions. And I do this to my sister and my mom. Every time they read a book of mine, I prompt them with questions. I go through this list of questions and I listen to their answers, or I even write their answers down sometimes. And this will be especially helpful if somebody's sending you back a document of notes, to prompt them with questions, almost like a little interview, and get their opinion on your book in a very tight way that's not all over the place. Because a lot of times readers, after they read a book, they'll be either hopefully in love with it, or they just have a lot of emotions about it because they just read a lot. They just went through a big amount of story, a lot of different things going on. So they might not have the most succinct reply to that, Right. So prompting your reader with questions is always the best way to go, in my opinion. And I'm going to read the questions that I personally ask my beta readers. Feel free to steal them. I also have a video out on my YouTube channel with these questions. So first, what did you think of the story as a whole? How did the characters develop throughout the story? That's something that you should already know, obviously, as the author, but it's important that your reader knows, obviously. At what point did you feel like, now the story has really begun? That will be a big tell for if you've started in the right place or if you've started too soon. A lot of writers start their books too soon, and too much happens, and it's kind of boring until something finally happens, and it's like, oh, now the story's really started, so you want to make sure that you started in the right place. Were there any parts you found yourself skimming? That's really helpful to know if you have written too dense of narration or descriptions that are just slowing things down. What was your favorite part of the story and why? What was the most suspenseful moment in the book? Who was your favorite character and why? Were there any moments you wish lasted longer? And what is the theme or message that you took away from this story? Again, you should know that last one. It's important that your reader knows. So you want those two, or that theme, to be congruent. You want them to say the same thing that you have written down in your notes, hopefully, about your theme or your story truth. And it can be a little bit different, obviously, because everybody gets something different out of a story. And hopefully they find multiple themes and multiple layers to your story, because everybody walks away with something a little bit different. So
it helps to expose the nuances, I think. To
some
see
variation's good.
Right. Especially with how did the characters develop, I think. Yeah. What's that one?
Yeah, how
did the characters develop throughout the story? Yeah. That can actually help unveil to you some of the nuances and different ways it could be taken.
Yeah.
Because different people will see characters different ways based on their own experience in life, which I've always found fascinating.
Yeah, it is.
I've had so much feedback from readers on my series where they will take one of the main characters and be like, oh, I saw, them realize this. And I'm like, wow, I didn't even see it that way. But that's there. It's present, and there's a bunch of different things people can mine out of your characters based on their own life experience. So it's neat to see those things. It's neat to have those nuances exposed, because that's important.
Yeah, it is so important. And like you said, it will open your eyes to things that you didn't even see that were there, which is one of the coolest experiences in writing, is when your reader finds something that you didn't even realize was there.
Right.
You're like, I wrote that and I didn't even see it. What? It's really cool.
Yeah, it is an awesome feeling.
So on the note of taking feedback, I know we've talked about that before, like taking critiques and receiving feedback. I think the most important thing is to, after you qualify your beta readers, you have these highly qualified people, is to have a growth mindset. have a mindset of being willing to learn and explore and try new things and improve, because that's what your ultimate goal is. And that's what your beta reader's goal should be, is to make your book the best it can possibly be and to make your future stories even better. So on that note, the quote I picked today goes like this. In a growth mindset, challenges are exciting rather than threatening. So rather than thinking, oh, I'm going to reveal my weaknesses, you say, wow, here's a chance to grow. And that is a quote by Carol S. Dweck. And I thought that went very well with our beta reader feedback theme for today. So go into it with a growth mindset, qualify your beta readers, ask them the right questions, and you will come out with a great result. Boom. That's it. If you enjoyed this episode of The Kate and Abby Show, share it with your friends and leave us a nice rating. Again, thank you to our patrons. Your support keeps us going. If you get value out of this podcast, go to patreon.com/The Kate and Abby Show and help us keep this show alive and free of interruptions. And if you haven't seen the video version of this podcast, check that out at Kate's YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/KAEmmons. And you can also find some great writing resources on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/AbbyEmmons. Until next time,
stay stoked
and rock on.